Edward Durell Stone, an architect not quite known where we are, but let's talk a little bit about him, because he's in a different way interesting too. Edward Durell Stone, 1902, 1978, a little younger than Louis Barragan. So Edward Durell Stone, himself born on March 9th, happy birthday, Edward Durell Stone, was an American architect known for the formal, highly decorative buildings he designed in the 1950s and 1960s. His works include the Museum of Modern Art in New York, the United States Embassy in New Delhi, India, the Keller Center. By the way, that embassy was highly valued by Frank Lloyd Wright, and he didn't value a lot of things, Frank Lloyd Wright, besides his own works. The Keller Center at the University of Chicago and the John F. Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts in Washington, D.C. This was the man, an interesting picture. And I think he was an interesting man, actually. Modernist, populist architect. Usually I don't like anything populist, but I think he had a complex nature. Edward Durell Stone, the so-called formalist, they say people are fundamentally interested in only three things: food, sex, and shelter. I can say I'm authoritative on the first two, although I'm in favor of both. It's shelter that concerns me, and it's nice to be doing something people are interested in. But on another occasion, he actually placed a question mark, in relation with what we call architecture. Maybe I have that quotation too about him, or some wording. Anyway, here he is right near Frank Lloyd Wright, who is on the third from the left, and I think the lady was the wife of Edward Durell Stone. Here he is looking at some tall models of his buildings. Edward Durell Stone, 15 iconic projects. From Rethinking the Future, which is a website, and you can have access to it on the web. Radio City Music Hall, Manhattan, not bad. These buildings' interiors claim to be the most beautiful in that period that didn't require performance to sell tickets and generate revenue. Edward Durell Stone, in collaboration with Donald Esky, designed and executed this music hall and bewildered its visitors with its elegant Art Deco interiors. His design kept traditions alive with modern requirements. For over 80 years, it has been listed as the world's largest indoor theater. It officially opened for visitors in 1932. Due to the stock crash of 1929, Rockefeller was in a dilemma whether to continue to the lease, which was costing him $3.3 million a year, or to break it. But he decided to build a complex that would attract people and generate revenue despite the dreaded economic climate. And Edward left no table unturned to bring that vision into reality. Here it is, Radio City Hall in Manhattan. It still exists. And the interior is not bad either. Of course, it's the flamboyance of Manhattan, it's the flamboyance of the, doing commerce even with art. But it is a good work that functions and it attracts people, and thus it was not needed to be demolished or changed dramatically. Columbus Circle, Manhattan, formerly called Gallery of Modern Art, 2 Columbus Circle is built on a small irregular site with its share of controversies and different public opinions. Then New York Times architecture critic Ada Louise Huxtable stated this 10-story concrete building as the die-cut Venetian palazzo on lily pops. The north facade complements the Columbus Circle with a concave surface following the curve. The white Vermont Imperial Square marble was perforated above the loggia and at the edges of each facade to create bronze circular windows. This project turned out to be the milestone in his career. His approach to building a structure in modern style with a touch of ornamentation was not accepted by critics. At first, his design got appreciated by millions. And here it is. Now it is modified by Allied Works, but for many years the building was like this. And I actually appreciate the fact that Edward Durell Stone stood against the trend and assumed even ornament in his architecture. For a long period of time, I didn't value his architecture, but I'm beginning to see that he was standing up for something that maybe should be remembered. So this is in a very central location in Manhattan, and the building is seen from, Central Park. You see the trees of Central Park. I passed by this building many times. I was never really impressed by it, but now from a distance, from across the ocean and over the years, I somehow begin to appreciate it, but unfortunately it doesn't look like this any longer because it was modified. John F. Kennedy Center for Performing Arts, Washington, D.C. The marble facade with ornamentation was built in 1971 after the assassination of then President John F. Kennedy. It was renamed as Living Memorial. The National Cultural Center Act 1958 was taken into consideration while designing. Stone designed a total of 6 stages and the complex keeping his design principle intact. The grand foyer with a riverfront connects to the 3 main theaters. With the embossed ceiling and crystal chandeliers, the large concert hall provides outstanding acoustics, which enhance or maybe the user experience to the other level. I don't know. I mean, it's not a building I'm instantly attracted towards, but apparently it works with its rather officious modernism, which again I don't appreciate very much. Anyway, the Center for Performing Arts, JF Kennedy. The Richard H. Mandel House, New York, built in 1935, so it was 88 years ago. This historic home overlooking reservoir is designed in international style using concrete blocks and steel frames with stucco finish. It is a Z. My God, we know what Z stands for in Putin's army. It is a Z-shaped building location on the sloping site with a partial basement recycling. Anyway, I'm not going to read all of this. Unlike Stone's other designs, this one lacks additional ornamentation. It has uniform walls, asymmetrical layout, focused more on keeping the floor horizontal with protruding balconies and ribbon windows. Modernistic design, almost international style, asymmetrical, no ornaments, surrounded by a beautiful landscape and trees. That is nature. Museum of Modern Art, New York. Now we are talking about a very important building in New York City. Near it now, Jean Nouvel built an interesting skyscraper. So in 1939, so it was built before the Second World War, Edward Durell Stone and Goodwin collaborated to build this stunning museum. Stone was known for his modern international designs and the fusion of balanced ornamentation with modern buildings, while Goodwin was known for his traditional Beaux-Arts style designs. He was also a member of the Museum of Modern Art's Board of Trustees. They designed a 6-story structure that can meet the expectation of the modern museum everyone had imagined. The major materials used to construct this grand structure are marble for the facade, glass walls, horizontal windows on office floors and galleries with 2 levels, and translucent glazing. The combination of glass and marble created a remarkable landmark in the neighborhood. Here it is, thoroughly modern. I don't see much of the Beaux-Arts tradition here. It is indeed MoMA, the Museum of Modern Art, New York City. I once had myself an exhibition here outside of the museum on the last day of the retrospective of Louis Kahn, when I paid myself my respects to Louis Kahn with a series of works that were paying homage to Louis Kahn. And because I couldn't go inside the building, I displayed them outside on the last day of the retrospective of Louis Kahn. Right in front of this museum, the Museum of Modern Art. Of course, I needed the approval of the New York police. Goodyear Household, Westbury, what is this? I'm not going to read. You know, again, healthy modernism, a modernism that looks almost fresh today and idealistic somehow, although it was probably not very special at the time. There is a side of Edward Durell Stone which turns me off a little bit, but I still think he was a complex man, an interesting man somehow. Maybe rather unhappy with doing architecture, although he claimed that he was highly, interested in shelters, in the shelter. And we are going to see his own house at the end. Stanford University Medical School, Stanford, California. Here it is. Here he probably exasperated again with his decorative interventions. And I would understand in a way the exasperation of the critics, who expected modern architecture to be completely devoid of ornamentation. It's true, his ornamentation is far from being as creative as the ornaments of Louis Sullivan. Yes, it's true. But what is surprising is that the embassy Edward Durell Stone built in New Delhi attracted the attention and the applauses of none other than Frank Lloyd Wright. Very unexpected. Walter and Betsy Johnson home, Connecticut. Anyway, this is also an interesting building somehow. It's a building which is sophisticated in terms of the history of architecture. It's symmetrical, but it also has somehow a level of rurality because of the material used. It's primal. It's a Ur architecture, almost Japanese somehow in its spirit. Interesting that agglomeration of things, table and chairs and piano, grand piano, right near the entrance or exit door. I wonder if that door is used. Probably not. Otherwise, I wouldn't explain that density of entities right there near the door. United States Embassy, New Delhi, established in 1950. The U.S. Embassy complex comprises the Roosevelt House, Chancery, office space, and so on. Its diverse studies in climate change and the tropical climate have helped me deliver climate responsive structure. The embassy was formally inaugurated on 1959, the 5th of January. The jail facade keeps the traditional Indian architecture alive, while the grand entry and double height glass facade brings in a modern touch. This fusion often leaves every visitor mesmerized by the beauty and revives the cultural niches or riches within them. This is the building, which again, I was very surprised to read that Frank Lloyd Wright admired this building a lot. And we saw the picture of Frank Lloyd Wright and Edward Durell Stone at that restaurant. Because this is not by in any way, an organic architecture in the sense Frank Lloyd Wright understood it. It's a, a governmental building, an official building, almost officious, and uses ornament and ornamentation, yes, in a discreet but obvious way. I'm rather surprised that Wright loved this building because the ornament is not very creative, actually, but maybe in the context of India was the right thing to do at that time. The columns are interesting here. I wish I had more pictures with it. Sorry, I don't. A hotel in Panama. I'm not going to read. Commercial structure, Panama Hotel. Hotels in general are commercial structures. After Luis Barragan, it's a little bit difficult to look at commercial structures. A college, Claremont, California, built in 1955. Built of, I don't know what these are, knobby concrete square blocks called warts for students to hook their skateboards. Interesting. Introduced knobby concrete square blocks called warts for students to hook their skateboards. The Stone used his signature style, ornamented this modern structure with Beaux-Arts. Critics showed their displeasure towards the design, calling it the ugliest building, while Stone exclaimed it as the modernist masterpiece. So there, Stone on one side, the critics on the other. This is the building. Lots of landscape here, not like Barragan's landscape. Bank Art Center in New Jersey, formerly known as Garden State Art Center. This building was constructed and officially inaugurated in 1968. A capacity for 17,500 in the amphitheater and 7,000 in open space. It has ranked as one of the most successful amphitheaters in the country. It is known for its extraordinary saucer-shaped roof supported by 8 large pillars made of concrete and open sides of the amphitheater. In 1996, it was renamed as PNC Bank Art Center after its naming rights were sold to Pittsburgh-based banking company. Of course, the banks are buying everything. This is the building. I'm not even sure I understand what I'm looking at here. It's huge. It doesn't look so huge from here, but you see the open air amphitheater. Edward Durell Stone. It's probably pleasant to sit there on a chair and watch something, a concert. PepsiCo Inc. Harrison, New York. I was there. I didn't know it was designed by Edward Durell Stone for Pepsi, of course. In 1956, spent almost $2 million for the construction of the earliest headquarters designed by Edward Durell Stone. It contains 7 building blocks connected through corners with a huge sculpture garden open to the public. This garden consists of 45 sculptures in a contemporary style. Of course, the great collection, because as I said, bankers and Pepsi corporate headquarters and people, they all love art. All the buildings are joined through a corner. In 1966, they moved to Westchester, and later the building was named the Olivetti Building. The design for this building, and I don't understand very well. They were moved to Westchester, but I saw them. Maybe I saw them in Westchester. I don't know. The design for this building was done to represent inverted ziggurat. The buildings have exterior facade clad with precast concrete panels with dark strip windows, creating a striking contrast. Later, it was classified as one of the most beautiful buildings in the city. That is in Westchester, I imagine. And here it is. This work by Edward Durell Stone. They are not so impressive from the level of the eye. They look better from the air, but yes, they have great artworks all around and the landscape is good. North Carolina State, we are approaching the end of this presentation, rather long. North Carolina State Legislative Building, completed in 1963, and a governmental building again. I don't know. These governmental buildings leave me a little bit cold, but they have their role, I guess, in life, as does that as other things perhaps too. Interesting that he placed these pavilions on top, almost to sabotage the urbanity of the building. What I look at here, it makes me think of some proposals by various architects today, and even buildings like mad buildings proposing, a village on top of another building, or Fujimoto. Edward Durell Stone did this, half a century ago, if not more, with these, sloping roofs on top of a building with a flat terrace. Interesting in a way that this was done then at that time. He could have done the second floor also, with a flat roof, terrace jardin or not. And the State University of New York at Albany designed in his signature style stonework on the campus, emphasizing more on the residential quadrants with all the required facilities planned around it. I'm a little bit confused by the wording that sometimes you find on Wikipedia. Constructed in 1964, the campus has a combination of design elements that attract its visitors, blah blah blah. Anyway, this is the complex. It's more than a building. It's a vast. So what is its function? The State University of New York at Albany. Albany is actually the capital of the state of New York. It's not New York, it's Albany. Quite large, and Wallace Harrison has great buildings here. The administrative buildings, the power center of the state of New York, which is in Albany, but I don't have pictures here of. I just show what Edward Durell Stone did. It's a decent architecture, but maybe not more than that. I thought I had also images of his house, but it seems I don't. No, I do have other images, but I don't understand what's going on here. Something happened to my, I think this is a house designed by Edward Durell Stone that arrived at this stage, if you can believe it. Yes, it happens. This is an image from the Embassy of India in New Delhi, the Embassy of the United States in India, in New Delhi. And I like this picture more than the colored ones. And I now I end here. You might see echoes of the Eur complex of buildings in Rome, from a different political upbringing, so to speak. And now his own house, and with this I end this presentation on Edward Durell Stone, his own house in Manhattan. And I thought, it's actually, I forgot about this, but I thought that you can actually make a house today where the facade is just an emblem, cryptical, decorative, and behind it hides the actual house. And look at the building on the left and look at the building on the right, and then you have this rather mysterious house which doesn't tell you what's happening behind the decorative screen, the mask, the veil. Well, behind it, there isn't much glory, if you ask me. I mean, it's a comfortable, cushioned interior of a well-to-do family, but the taste of the designers, to me, is a little bit, eclectic, so to speak. There is opulence. There is a certain level of, collecting mentality here. You look at that chandelier and you ask, what does this have to do with modernism? No, with modernity, and nothing. But then, who knows? Maybe a chandelier could, by contrast, emphasize the stark modernity of modernism. And look at the stair, with covered in, velvet or, that ornamented, carpet, an opulent long table. Of course, he was well-to-do, and I'm sure he had maids and so on who would take care of that table in the absence of a maid, at least one. And then you look at that modernistic large painting on the wall, and you wonder, what does the chandelier have to do with a painting? Maybe he was a little bit confused. Opulence could lead to confusion. That was it. Let's wish him happy birthday. And thank you for being here today.